Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Thank you. How'd that feel, Dan?
A lot to live up to.
Did it feel good?
Yeah, it does. It
Now
does.
you feel like you owe the audience?
A little bit, yeah. Like I said, a lot to live up to.
Cool. Well, we're glad to have you here in Lansing.
Thank you for having me.
And one of the things we like to do at Startup Grind, after we give a warm welcome to our speakers, we like to hear how things got started when you were a child. What was your childhood like? Were there formative moments where you can think back and say, this is when I got interested in business?
I don't know if I ever got interested in business. It's still something that I'm just, throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. Something that I think was kind of formative in my childhood years is we moved a lot. I went to 13 schools in the first 6 years. So it made me learn how to adapt really, really quickly. And it isn't something that really registered with me until much, much later on, but that skill of being able to go into a new environment and get used to it, make friends quickly, knowing that in 6 months I'm going to be gone. So I don't have 4 months to make friends. I've got 4 weeks to make friends, or I'll never have any. So.
And when you were young, then what did you think you were going to do when you were an adult?
Be a race car driver, a paleontologist. I didn't know what that was, but every kid likes.
It sounded
dinosaurs.
cool?
Yeah, it sounded cool. Yeah.
You thought you'd be maybe a race car driver or a scientist or something like that?
Yeah. I was all over the map.
And then what happened when you got older?
Well, I got off to college and stayed all over the map. Started majoring in astronomy, changed to astronomy and physics, changed to just mathematics, dropped out, worked at Space Camp and Space Academy, became a massage therapist, went back to school, and studied philosophy and history.
So what was going on there? You were adapting and you were moving around. What was going on there?
I don't know if that was adapting or just not having a clue what I really wanted to do. Just the next shiny thing. I just kept reaching for what was interesting. Yeah.
What was the space camp like? That sounds pretty cool.
That was awesome. I mean, if I actually worked at Space Camp where they filmed the movie Space Camp right before they filmed it. Right after they filmed it. So working with the kids, it was amazing. Got to meet more astronauts than I can remember. I got to watch the Hubble Space Telescope being launched standing next to Jim Lovell. So I had a wonderful evening. At the time, Apollo 13 had not yet come out, so nobody knew really who Jim Lovell was and how amazing he was. So I kind of had him all to myself. So it's kind of like a high-tech Santa Claus. Jim Lovell, by the way, is the commander for Apollo 13. So he got really popular after that. But I got to talk to him and watch the shuttle launch, and it's really cool.
So then you were figuring out what you were doing. You dropped out of school, you went back to school, and then you launched your company. Yeah,
I don't know how I went from philosophy and history to becoming an app developer. Like I said, kind of all over the map. I never intended to be a developer. It just I learned HTML and JavaScript and stuff like that in college just because it was fun. I think I spent more time working on websites than on papers, just because I enjoyed it. And I kind of ran out of money and couldn't afford to go back to school, and so I had to get a job, and ended up working in New York as doing web pages for a hospital. 9/11 happened, and I decided I didn't want to be there anymore, so left New York and ended up at Microsoft. And never intended any of this to happen. Never had a plan.
Yeah, because you wanted to be a race car driver, right?
Right. And we race cars at Microsoft, just virtual.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then you were at Microsoft, and things were good?
Things were awesome. I worked for Microsoft Xbox, and we weren't the typical Microsoft team. We were actually put off campus as far away from the Microsoft culture as they could get us, because they wanted a new approach to the Xbox. Not a lot of people know this, but the culture at Microsoft has evolved from Xbox. So technically we influenced them in the way that they began to morph and change things, be more user-centric than developer-centric. Yeah, I had a great time there, made a lot of money, made a lot of friends, learned a ton. Yeah, got to play video games it wasn't my job to play video games, but
Maybe a little bit.
yeah, it wasn't frowned upon for us to play video games.
But was there something missing, something driving you to leave? What happened?
Well, when I was working at Microsoft, I was a contractor. So I wasn't, a Microsoft employee. And I had a better job offer from a startup called Smilebox, which was right around the corner from where we worked. And they recruited me. They needed, new people on board. I went over and worked for them. I had a moderately miserable experience with them. Did that for about 6 months. And my wife didn't like the weather in Seattle, so we moved to California. And at that point, I became a freelance developer, working for myself, which meant not really working much at all.
What do you mean not working much at all?
Well, I was, as a beginning freelance developer, you're just waiting for people to contact you and say, hey, can you make this thing for us?
So you put the sign up, you put the sign there, and you were waiting for people to beat down the doors,
yeah,
looking
we'll
for your
code for food, that kind of thing.
and you were kind of ended up twiddling your thumbs.
A little bit of that. I mean, I did get lucky, and I had a very popular blog, a tech blog, so people knew me a little bit, and it wasn't a horrible transition into freelance development. But one thing I recognized is I needed more. I mean, having former employee or working at Microsoft on my portfolio looked good, but having something slightly more tangible was important. And I'd had this idea for a website. There were no mobile apps at this point. I had an idea.
What year is this?
So this would have been 2008 when I started freelance development. I'd had this idea a few years prior, back in, it was actually after the movie King Kong came out, the remake by Peter Jackson. That was 3 hours long. And 3 hours of not using the restroom during a movie can become quite painful at the end. So that was the inspiration for RunPee. So that's where I had the idea at the end of 2005. And I'd talk about it and kick it around and tell friends about it, and it generally got a laugh. And then when I became a freelance developer, I thought, that RunPee thing, it's never going to work. It's never going to become popular, but it'd be a really good thing to build to practice some new programming skills that I needed and have something to show, potential clients. It's like, hey, I built this, and that's pretty much why I built RunPee originally. It was just to give people something to see that I built.
And so what did this app do?
It told, this website at this point.
Sorry, yeah, website.
Yeah. This website told people the best time to run and pee during a movie so they wouldn't miss the most important scenes.
And so you had that idea, and you thought, hey, this is cool, I need it, but it's never going to make any money. And so you just kind of sat on it, and you didn't work on it until you needed a portfolio piece.
Right. I don't know if I thought it was really cool. I thought it was different and probably kind of stupid. But it's kind of like, Sharper Image, or not Sharper Image, those stores that sell you all the gadgetry and the things that look cute but you don't need. Mm-hmm. Like, nobody's going to use this. It's funny, but nobody's going to use it.
I think everybody has ideas, and they think they're kind of cool ideas, but like you said, they don't think it'll be widely used. How do you tell the good ideas from the bad ideas? How do you tell when you should move forward and have an app that gets downloaded 1 million times, or if it's an app that you put $20,000 into and then nobody uses it? That
is such an important question, and I think it's impossible to answer. If you go to somebody who doesn't know what Twitter is, well, they've heard of it, but they don't use it, so they're not really familiar with it, and you explain it to them, What's their response? That's stupid. Why would anybody use that? Of course it's not stupid. It's, I guess it's $1 billion company. It's hugely, hugely popular. So even knowing that it's useful and popular, when you explain it to people, they still think it's ridiculous. Facebook. Facebook's a horrible idea. Nobody's ever going to use Facebook because MySpace exists, and it's too much work to build up this new space of who you are and all these friends, and it's just it's not gonna happen. You could think of pretty much, I shouldn't say every, but most useful apps or websites. You couldn't tell that they were a good idea before they were built.
Sounds like a big dilemma.
It is. I mean, I think you just have to build it and have faith. And of course, you got to know, when do you just give up? I mean, if it's not going to work, you don't want to just, spend your retirement money on, waste it on something, but then you just don't know if it's going to be useful until you've built it and you let people decide. Yeah.
So what happened with RunPee? You built that as a portfolio piece to help your consulting, and then what happened?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Well, I got to present it at a developer conference. So they let me get on that stage, because I was a fellow developer, and I told people about it, and the audience just roared. They loved it. They thought it was hilarious. And I have Google Analytics on my website, and I had a couple of hundred hits, on the next few days. People were checking it out, and then it dropped back down to like 0, 3, 2, 0. So nobody was using the website.
How did that feel when you had the 100 and then it dropped back down?
Well, I was hoping that I would get at least a few people because originally it was I touted it as a Wikipedia because I wanted people, I mean, I can't go see every single movie, right? So I built it so that people could go see a movie, and the idea is that they would, after the movie, think, well, I think after this scene would be a good time to run and pee. So they could go to the website and put in information. And then another person could read that and go see the movie and go, yeah, that was a good time, but you got the time wrong. It didn't start at 43 minutes. I timed it on my watch, and it started at 48 minutes. And so they could go in and edit, like the Wikipedia. They could improve the data. And so, I knew that I was hoping that I could get a small cadre of fans that would help me put this data in. It's not going to make any money, but maybe it'll be, a few hundred, fans, a few thousand users would have, to me, been a home run. Yeah.
So was there some disappointment then when it dropped off?
Yeah, I was really hoping that was my big launch. I'm not going to get a bigger audience than, ever than I was going to get at 360 Flex. So, that's where I launched it, and like I said, I was hoping to just get a small group of people to get it rolling, and they would tell their friends, and like I said, a few hundred, a few thousand people would have been awesome. And by the time spring came around, there was practically nothing. That's when
Well, did you think about giving up then when that happened? Was that like depressing? Like you put yourself out there in the world, and here's your big chance, and you got your big chance, you executed, you had a few hundred people, and then instead of growing, it shrunk. Did you think?
Well, I kind of did give up. I mean, movies also going, there's, during the winter, there's a lot of popular movies. And then, February, March, April, that's, where you launch movies to die. Because that's not when blockbusters are launched. So I just kind of ignored it during that time. And I was like, well, we're moving around to May. This is when the big blockbuster movies are going to come out. So if it's got legs, it's going to happen this year. I'm going to go see one movie every weekend, and I'll add the data myself, and just see if I can gather a few, get the snowball rolling down the hill, so to speak.
You wanted to seed the community with some content.
Right. Just because if there's nothing, then nobody's going to show up and go, oh yeah, I'm going to contribute to nothing. I had to give them something to get started, so that was the idea.
So it sounds like you doubled down then. When you saw this thing not working, you
Right.
said, I'm going to double down and put some more effort into it and see what happens?
Right. Well, I mean, we're not talking about a huge effort. I mean, I'm paying for movie tickets and, a couple of hours to go see a movie, which I probably wanted to see anyways. So that wasn't, a huge expense. So, and that didn't really affect anything. And then my mother, of all people, she watched this tech show with Leo Laporte, listened to it. It was a radio show. And I was visiting her, and she's like, yeah, give Leo a call. I bet he would like this. So he's on live at this time. And I called the number, and I get the producer, and I tell the producer, I've got this website I made. Tells you the best time to run and pee during a movie so you don't miss the best scenes. And she goes, yeah, I'll share that with Leo. So they go to a commercial break, they come back, and Leo's chuckling. And he starts talking about it. And I think I got a few thousand hits that day. It's a popular tech show.
Mothers know best.
Mothers know best. I mean, who would have thought that my mother would be giving me tech advice? But yeah, that time it worked out. And I mean, this is all, you could not have planned this. But from that, one of the listeners wrote a comment on Dave Barry's blog. He's a humorist at the Miami Herald. Dave Barry read that comment and wrote a short little blog piece about this is why I love the internet, is silly things like this. Art Silverman, the director or the producer for All Things Considered at NPR, reads Dave Barry's blog. He calls me and says, hey, would you like to come on NPR? And I'm like, I mean, it's getting surreal at this point. Like I said, I was hoping for a few thousand. Now I'm getting, like thousands of hits day after day. And it's starting to grow. I'm like, oh my God, people actually enjoy this. I mean, who knew?
And this is hitting you fast too, right?
It is. This is all happening like one day after another after another. So, I do the interview for NPR, and presumably somebody at NPR who was listening commented at Reddit. And so, I'm looking at my Google Analytics every day. Like, first thing, you wake up in the morning and you go check your analytics from the day before. This is before they had instant analytics. So I'm looking at my analytics every day, and it's like, I'm seeing like the little jump, and it's going up, like very excited. So I get up one morning, and I look at it, and I'm like, what happened? All my data's gone. It's flatline. Google, what can you do? And then I notice, it's flatline, and then this big, huge vertical spike going straight up. So all that previous data that was up here just got squashed by Reddit.
Like looking at like a hill next to a mountain?
Yeah, like looking at a dirt clod next to a mountain. I mean, it was just off the charts. I mean, kind of literally off the charts. I go to runpee.com and it's not working. The server's crashed. I'm calling up, my hosting company because I've got it hosted on a shared hosting package, which is like the worst thing possible. But, when you have 3 people a day, it's fine. When you have 100,000, not so much. So,
Wow.
I'm begging them.
That's a big change.
Switch, get me on a server that's going to handle this. And they would move it, and it would crash that server. So I'm like, here's my bank account. Let's make this work. Because, now it's snowballing. I've got, this thing's got legs. I'm hoping for a few thousand. I've got 100,000.
And it was Reddit that crushed
It was
All
Reddit.
Things Considered
Yeah.
and all the other major news outlets.
Yeah. People used to get really floored about Dig, and Dig was big in its day, but Dig is like, whatever, Dig. It's on the homepage of Dig. Who cares? Reddit will crash your server. Yeah, it's a good problem to have. Right.
So you're running around with your hair on fire. You're calling the server company and saying, hey, get this thing going, get this thing going.
Right. And it's at this point, and I'm going to Reddit and I'm reading all the comments, and there are people like, oh my God, they've got to make a mobile app, because it's not just as a web page, it's built with Adobe Flex. So it's kind of
before we get there,
yeah.
when this was happening and you're seeing hundreds of thousands of people, what are you thinking? Are you getting stars in your eyes now, thinking about the possibilities of this, or what are you thinking? Or are you even thinking about that because you're just so focused on what's happening right now on that fire?
It is kind of like there's almost like there's a fire and you're trying to, there's like this panic, like, okay, I've got to solve this problem, and people are calling me, and people are trying to get interviews. I think I did during this time period. In one day I did 18 interviews for radio shows all over America, for a radio show in New Zealand, in South Africa. I've done interviews in Colombia that were translated into Spanish. I haven't done one in Chinese yet. That's odd.
Put that on your bucket list.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was just, I'm getting pulled in every single direction, and I want to get this thing working.
How do you know how to spend your time when that's happening? Like if you have an interview request, or you want to get your server working, or maybe there's conflicting interview requests. How did you decide what was the most effective way to spend your time?
Well, I had to get the thing working, because you've got all these people trying to, they're reading about it at Reddit, or they're hearing about it from their friends, and then they're going to, I don't know what the error page was, but that's not going to do anybody any good. So, that's my focus. Now, I can respond to emails later and, requests for press and whatnot. I can get to that, but obviously the website's got to work. Yeah, so that was the focus on that day, and for the next few days until I got it stabilized. Yeah.
And then you said in the midst of this, you realized people were making one particular feature request?
Yeah, they wanted a mobile app. And I don't know if Android was out yet or if it had just come out, but the iPhone was really popular, and it was the new big thing. And people were like, we need an iPhone app, we need an iPhone app. Because the use case is obviously at the movie theater. I mean, at this point, on the web page, it's set up so that you can print it out. I mean, who wants to print out a piece of paper and try to read that during a movie? But what are you going to do? How else are you going to get a web page at a movie? So yeah, people are begging for an app. At this point, I didn't know how to make a mobile app, so I was scrambling. This is probably mid-May. I'm scrambling to find somebody who can help me make a mobile app, because now it's looking like maybe this is something that's going to go viral, and presumably make me some money. Because at this point, it's just been something that was fun to work on and learn, and if anything, it's cost me money. I'd never thought that it would actually be an income, but now that's a possibility.
How were you financing this? It sounds like maybe it wasn't a lot of investment until the server started crashing, and then it sounds like you maybe had to make some decisions about capital outlays at that point?
Yeah, it was never so much that it was, I had to sacrifice anywhere. I'm talking about movie tickets and, server costs. And I mean, it's a lot to pay. I mean, paying $10, $20 a month is what you're kind of looking at for most server costs at this stage. Paying $50, I mean at a lower stage, but paying $50 a month, that's not a lot of money when you're considering a viral startup kind of thing. So yeah, it wasn't, I'm not saying it's chump change, but it's certainly worth the investment.
And so then when you were looking at this, developing an app, and you said you didn't have the skills to do that,
Yeah.
you were looking at figuring out how to pay for that?
Yeah, I was either looking at, and I didn't have enough money to go pay somebody, because I'm a developer. I know how expensive developers are. Yeah, so I was either looking for enough money to pay somebody to build it, because that would be like breaking the bank account to pay somebody to build the app, and then I found a partner that was willing to pay for having the app developed, and we would share the proceeds. And so that's how we got it launched as an iPhone app on July 4th, 2009.
And was there anything interesting about that partnership, or why you decided to pick one company over another? Was it pricing?
Time was of the essence. I mean, I couldn't count on this press continuing the attention that I had, continuing with just a website. So, I had to rush to fix it. So somebody who was going to need, months wasn't going to work. It had to be somebody who was like, I need this in a month. And, just getting Apple to approve an app can take a week, so it had to be done pronto. And there was a team that had already put themselves together to build apps like this. They recognized the potential in the partnership. So we worked together. They got it built. Like I said, it was in the store within a little bit more than a month. And they also had the added bonus of one of their partners was a pro quarterback, well, he was a pro quarterback. His brother was an all-pro quarterback, Carson Palmer. And then Jordan Palmer was the brother who was one of the partners. And
Jordan Palmer was a partner at this firm you contracted?
right, right. And so, that helped out. It really helped out that he played for the Cincinnati Bengals, who were featured on Hard Knocks that spring. That was it the following year? No, it was that summer. That summer, Cincinnati was on Hard Knocks on HBO, and a slight sort of, not really a fib, but they presented it as this app that we built, and they did build it. It wasn't their idea. So to this day, a lot of people think that Jordan Palmer came up with the idea for RunPee. And I don't care. That's fine. But they got to mention it on Hard Knocks. If they had just said, we built this app for this dude Dan Florio, then HBO would have been like, snip. We'll just see that on the cutting room floor. But yeah, it made it into HBO, and that was interesting because now we're seeing spikes in download per time zone. So it would show on the East Coast, and you'd see a huge spike. Twitter, everything was just going nuts. And then, it'd drop off, and then an hour later it'd spike again, and an hour later it'd spike again. So,
was it very clear to you sounds like a lot of excitement, a lot of press, sounds like you recognized that wasn't going to last forever and you needed to capture this opportunity with a mobile app? Was that a real clear decision at that time when you were in the midst of it?
Yeah. I mean, the use case, it begged to be mobile. And again, this is early. This is like 2009. At this point, not many people had smartphones. It was kind of the hipster geek thing to get, but it was becoming more and more prevalent. And so yeah, there was no question it had to be a mobile app.
And was your perfect solution to go with a partner, or did you evaluate other options, or was there another option that you would have preferred?
Oh, well, the option I would have preferred is to build it myself. But yeah, that just, for me to learn how to build iOS apps, being on I worked for Microsoft, I didn't have a Mac. I'm a Windows guy. So yeah, just to learn how to use a Mac was going to take me a month. Programming for iOS is the worst programming language on the planet. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but yeah, it's just, I've seen the code. I've not written it, but I've seen it, and it's just like a horror story.
Sorry, Leo.
It's getting better. It's a lot better now. Yeah, so I just went with, well, this kind of reminds me of a story that I read, some research. When you're faced with an important decision, how do you go about making it? Do you look and go, well, I'm going to gather 2 or 3 different options and then evaluate the pros and cons of each. Now, if time is of the essence, that's not what you do. The researchers thought that that's how people would work. So they thought, who are people that are under time constraints to make important decisions? And it would be fire chiefs. You don't have time to evaluate your options. Something's on fire. You got to put it out. And when we're dealing with things like a viral launch and you're not really built to cope with it, something's on fire, and you got to take advantage of the heat. So anyways, what does a fire chief do when they get to a building that's on fire? They gather information, and as soon as they see the first option that they can go with that doesn't have an obvious flaw, they do that. They don't wait to get another one and compare and contrast. It's like, well, I don't see something wrong with this, do it. The same thing for people that are in military combat. They're on the, commanding troops on the ground, and, they don't have time when you're being shot at, to gather information and do field tests and It's like, I think this will work, let's do that.
And that was how it was with you. You saw this opportunity, and you said, I'll use this partnership so there's no capital risk on my end.
Right.
And then we'll just move forward.
Exactly. Yeah.
Might not be the best, but...
Well, it was the best at the time, and I could have waited, and I could have failed completely. So I wouldn't be here today. I mean, at least I'm here today. So it's been a long road, but it's gotten to the success. So I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but in spite of that, I guess the idea had legs.
When you look back, what do you see as some of the big mistakes that you've made?
Uh, I can't say that the decision to go with the partnership, which eventually dissolved, it didn't work out, but it didn't fail, but it did dissolve. I can't say that that was a failure. I think the biggest failure I made was with advertising. I'm really fortunate, and probably the key thing about the RunPee app is that it's a good story to tell. Friends just like to tell other friends about it. As a matter of fact, I don't ever advertise. People have advertised for me, but one person came to me, the Jay and Silent Bob. They were doing a U.S. tour of their cartoon movie that was coming out, and it's like, hey, you'd be a perfect fit. You should be a sponsor. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I've never paid for advertising before. What are we talking about here? And he's like, oh, about $20,000. I'm like, oh, are you kidding? I mean, I don't make that much in a year. I'm not going to spend that on advertising. The app didn't make that much in a year. Well, maybe barely. So I'm not going to blow my whole, income on advertising. And he'd come back.
Even though you had a lot of users, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't making that much money. He came back and it's like, maybe we can work something out for 10. I'm like, no. So finally he came down to 5. And I'm like, I probably can't go wrong with 5,000. So I spent $5,000. I was a partner. I had posters up at all their venues where they went and showed off their movie, and Kevin Smith was there, and they would mention it to the audience before as one of the sponsors and stuff. And so it's really hard to track exactly how many downloads I got from their events. I'm pretty sure I lost money, but probably not that much. But yeah, I shouldn't have advertised. It just didn't pay off. Yeah, I tell people the best advertising you can get is word of mouth. It's free, and people generally, when somebody tells you about something, a friend tells you, even if it's a stranger tells you about something, you're much more willing to take that advice than if you just, oh, I saw something on screen, I wasn't really paying attention.
So when it was making $20,000 a year, how many users did your app have?
Well, it was making more than 20, but at that point, maybe 100, 200,000.
That's a lot of users.
Yeah, but the app was free also for a long period of time, because we did recognize that the more users you have, the more users you have to tell people about your app. So there's your advertising. So making the app free is advertising, but at some point you got to make money. So I charge I moved it up to being $1 app. So the downloads drop, but at least it's making some money.
And at that time, were you thinking about different monetization schemes?
Yes and no. Mobile advertising is generally not. I mean, you've got to have millions and millions of users to make any decent amount of income, especially to support like a company sort of project. You're talking. The advertisers that I talk to, or some of them that have wanted to just advertising platforms, they're like, if you don't have 1 million active users, then yeah, call us back. They don't even want to deal with you. So if you're not Angry Birds, you're not worth talking to. Yeah.
And so what was life like then? Like you were really successful with your number of users, but it sounds like monetarily, I don't know if that was meeting your lifestyle goals.
Well, it wasn't really costing any money. Again, I'm paying for movie tickets, and I'd pay my mother and sister who helped me, go get the P times for the movies. I'd give them a little extra for doing this work for me. So it isn't like a company where I'm burning through investor cash and stuff. And I'm a software developer, so I'm working on other people's startups. I think they all failed, but I'm working on their startups, making money to support myself and this little side project of mine. Yeah.
And then did something happen to change that?
Yeah, I started running out of money. After the stock market, real estate collapse and stuff, a lot of startups, a lot of small mom and that's who I tended to work for, is really small teams, mom and pop kind of startups, they just ran out of money, so those jobs kind of dried up. And I was really, really lucky that I started charging, I moved the app to being a $1 app. It had been free for the past 18 months. Moved it to being $1, I think right around mid-October. And this girl I'd never heard of before, Rashida Jones. Do you know who Rashida Jones is? She's in Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah.
Producer, Quincy Jones' daughter. So I've never heard of her.
She was in The Office.
Right, in The Office. Yeah, I'd never heard of her before. She was interviewed in Vanity Fair magazine. I had heard of that. And there's a full-page picture of her, and there's this little bubble, and it says, my favorite app is the RunPee app that tells you when to pee during a movie. And that was it. So this woman I'd never heard of loved the RunPee app, and I think we made about, give or take about $14,000 in the next month off of that, which I didn't have to pay for. So that was advertising, but I didn't have to pay for it. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And it was just fortuitous that I just happened to make the app paid right before that came out. Because I almost never get notification that RunPee is going to be in the press. It's been talked about on the Today Show has mentioned it 4 times at least. They've never contacted me. It's been on, obviously people blog about it all the time. It's been on different TV shows and stuff like that. It's pretty rare that I get a heads up that this is coming.
And you said that advertising doesn't make a lot of money unless you have millions of users, and you have 500,000 active users.
Mm-hmm.
But now do you have a different arrangement?
Right. Now I have a different arrangement. A drug company came to me. God, this is kind of a long story. Let's see if I can really summarize this. You know those movie ads that you see before movies start, first looks? Mm-hmm. They show at some theaters, and other theaters have a different thing, vaguely the same thing. This guy comes to me and he goes, you should, he works for First Looks. He said, you should advertise the RunPee app before that. I'm like, well, how much are you talking about? $50,000. Okay. Again, that's way outside of my range for what I can afford. And he came to me, and he's a huge fan of the RunPee app. So he comes to me about a year later and he goes, listen, I've got this partner, blah, blah, blah. I can't really tell you who they are yet, but, and he's pitching this thing to me, and I'm like, Billy, I really appreciate that you love the app, but I can't afford $50,000 for an ad, no matter how good the ad is. And he goes, no, you don't understand. They're going to pay for the ad. You don't have to pay for anything. They're going to pay for an ad. Why? And I really didn't understand this. I'm like, are these people stupid? So the arrangement is the drug company who is advertising a drug for women with overactive bladder, they paid for, presumably, according to Billy, who was trying to recruit me before, somewhere around $50,000 for this ad that they paid for. They paid me for all the downloads, reimbursed me for all of them that happened while I made the app free. And when an app is free, downloads skyrocket. When you advertise a free app, advertise skyrocket on top of that. And then all I have to do is include their ad in the app. So I'm just like, oh, and they paid me to develop the ad that went into the app. And I think I made more from developing the ad for my own app than I made for almost any job I ever had. Yeah, drug companies, they've got a lot of cash.
Wow. So you did something you loved, and then this fan loved what you were doing, and then he wanted to give back some love to you and help you out, and that really changed the game, sounds like.
It really has, and I've been so fortunate that I don't have fans of the RunPee app, I have evangelists. I've heard from so many people, they're like, oh my God, I've told everybody in the office, I tell strangers in line at the movie theater, it's really awesome. And I never tried to do that. It's just, that's kind of like this quirky RunPee app. People like telling stories. That's the essence of it. People like to tell a story, and they like the notoriety of, they feel ownership when they tell the story about something, that they're helping somebody else out. So this is how I get so many downloads, is people like to tell their friends about it.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit. What is your advice to people out in the audience who maybe have an idea for an app or have a friend who has an idea for an app? What do you think they should do?
It's, no matter what the app is, I don't care if it's a calculator, try to find some angle where there's a story involved. And obviously if it's a calculator app, that's kind of a edge case, but if you can think of some way for people to share it with their friends, it may not become viral, but it'll at least be, moderately infectious. Give them the tools. Obviously you can hook in social media and stuff, that's kind of a given. But if it's a game, a way that there's something in there that people want to share. And especially if they can kind of start feeling a little bit of ownership. I don't know, I don't play Game of War and those games, but when you have those games and you've got your avatar, you feel ownership of that game. I don't just play this game, I'm a part owner in it. And if you can create that sort of connection, not with every user, that's not gonna happen with every user. Most users, even if the RunPee app, they just use the app, they go home. But you only need a small percentage to become your evangelists. And that pays huge dividends. Thinking about that story aspect, because people just like to tell stories. And they like to share. They like to share good news.
So it's like a way to hook some percentage of that audience that cares about calculators or whatever it is,
Right.
so that they'll go out and be the people that love it and are the evangelists.
Yeah. So obviously that could be really challenging, but just chew on it. Keep thinking about it. Think of some angle in there that would entice people to tell other people about it. And think of times that you share information about an app, if it's a game or a utility app. Why have you told other people about an app? And I think everybody can relate to this, that they've gotten some app, no matter what it does, and like, my God, this solves a huge problem. I'm so grateful for this, and I can't wait to tell my sister. So when that happens, think about why that's happening for you, and then think about, well, how can I do this with my app? What's in this that I'm building that would make somebody want to go share it with a friend?
When you look back at the success you've had, is there anything you would do differently to maybe accelerate or increase that success?
That's really tough. I'm not a business person, I'm a developer. So I'm usually looking at what little tools can I do to round out the app. So I just add more features, try to make it easier to use, obviously, more efficient, things like that. But yeah, it's hard to think of, because I think advertising has been so ineffective compared to just the word of mouth. Word of mouth is the best advertising you can't buy. So, I think if anything, it's finding an effective social media hook. And I don't really know that what I've got in the RunPee app is really effective right now. It gets used some, but there is a social media component to the app. It just lets you, if you're watching a movie and you want to tweet, hey, I'm watching this movie, you can go to Twitter and type all this stuff in. Or if you're in the RunPee app, then you've already selected the movie and just kind of press a button and it'll attach the movie poster to your tweet, and you don't actually have to type anything. So, little things like that, things that users might want to do. And that's just because I'm a developer. I'm trying to think of what would people want to do and make it easier for them. Problems. What problems do people have? I was talking to somebody before. Could you imagine? Think about tweeting about a movie, and you're like, I really want to attach the movie poster. I don't even know how you'd do that. Not from your phone. That would be a nightmare. So that's a problem that people might have, so I tried to solve that in the app.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. And we're going to open it up right now to questions from the audience. So I think Nick's going to get a microphone ready.
Well, thank you again for coming in. We appreciate it. The question I have for you is, how do you, as you start to bring in more advertisers, and how do you keep them happy, the ones that are essentially paying your bills, while not losing the user experience of the app? So how do you kind of create that balance to make sure they get the ROI, but you don't lose users, so they don't think, oh, he's just trying to make money? You know what I mean?
You're going to lose users. Yeah, I mean, you can't please everybody, and I've gotten a lot of pushback from people. I've also had a lot of RunPee users contact me and say, "Thank God, you've got advertisers, because we were worried. You know, we paid $1 for this app. We realize that you can't run this app, you know, indefinitely on $1 per download. And what if you just folded and we lost all this stuff? So we're thankful that you have ads." And you know what I mean? So, but yeah, the bottom line is I definitely had people like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to stop using it. I thank them for their, you know, their business up to that, and I apologize. And I'm like, but business reality is what it is. And I was facing tough decisions about how the quality of the data, and you know, basically we go see every wide release movie, and at the point that I was at, I was thinking about, well, if I'm not going to make more money off of this, it's not really paying for itself. I'm going to have to curtail some of the movies that we had, so maybe just add 1 a week instead of 3, and nobody benefits from that. You know, so now I'm in a financial point where RunPee is on good financial ground for the indefinite future, you know, years and years to come.
How much time would you say, percentage-wise, you spend doing development now, and what's kind of been the history of that?
Is the question about percent development time versus percent business?
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that's a good question. Obviously, initially, you know, I had to build the app. That was a lot of work. And it, you know, for each release, I would probably spend maybe 80-ish hours. Well, maybe not that much. Yeah, I'd say about 80-ish hours of development and testing and things like that per update. You know, and you're spreading this out over many months, right? I try to update the app about maybe 3-ish times a year. Business-wise, now, I don't know if you're including business-wise seeing movies. It's a pretty frightening number when you calculate the like 100,000 hours a year. We did it. It's like 160. Yeah, it's not 100. 160 movies a year times roughly 2 hours a movie. If you count that as business work, we spend way more time watching movies. And let me tell you, it's not fun watching a movie and trying to write notes and get, you know, P times.
Yeah, did you say you go back and rewatch some of the movies sometimes?
It happens sometimes, yeah, that it's inevitable. Yeah, the movie Inception is kind of separate from your question, but I had to see that 3 times before I even understood the movie so that I could recommend a P time for it.
So who here feels sorry for Dan because he has to go watch movies for work? Did you have a question, Stephanie?
Dan, thanks for sharing your story. As a marketer, I'm always curious to look for ways to make tie-ins with one business and another business and look for business opportunities. I'm just wondering, with the attention you've gotten through national media and with celebrities being quoted as saying that your app is their favorite, are you finding a lot of reaction or collaboration opportunities within the entertainment industry? And part B of my question is that it potentially opening avenues for you to have, say, movie companies or movies as advertisers on your app?
Okay, so part A, no. So far, no one. Well, wait. One big. Can I? There's a movie, a B movie about a really big spider that attacks Los Angeles and stuff, and it had the movie star or the guy from Heroes that read minds, Matt Parkman. Anyways, they came to me and said, hey, would you do P times for us? And they gave me the movie to watch online. So that's the first and only time that's happened. And B, I would love it because it seems like an obvious place, like, movies would want to advertise in a movie app. So I'm hopeful that that will happen, because if I'm going to have ads in the RunPee app, I would like the ads to be a feature. And so if you're using an app about movies, I think if you saw an ad about a movie, and especially if, like, for instance, you're going to go see the Avengers, and so you select the Avengers, and it knows, oh, you like action movies, so like, let's give you some information, an ad about action movies. Well, yeah, it's an ad, but it's also some information that you might actually want. So I think that would be a perfect marriage, and hopefully that will happen in time. Well, we do have that, at least from my mother and sister and niece, who helped me, gather the P times. I do have a partnership with AMC Theater. They include the RunPee data in the AMC Theater app, and I get free movie passes, or I've got a little card. There's no AMC Theater in Asheville, North Carolina, so I have to pay to go see movies. But they get to go for free as much as they want.
Is there, are you doing any data mining, or is there any interest in the data mining? And is it true that the movie makers are now coordinating their P times?
I haven't had any requests for data mining. I do, just as a quick aside, at the end of the year, I publish on Facebook and my blog, the runpee.com blog, little stats about the movies, like what percentage of movies have scenes after the end credits. Because that's one of the things the app does. It tells you if there's anything extra after the end credits. And so I think it turns out like 25% of movies have something, either during or after. What is the average length of movies? And then what's kind of the breakdown? I did a little data mining on how the grade that we gave movies versus the length of the movie, which there tended to be a correlation that the longer a movie was, the better grade we gave it. And I wanted to tie that in with Rotten Tomatoes and use the user votes there, but I just didn't have time to do all that mashup. But I think that would be interesting. Personally, I think that it's a rip-off to go see a 90-minute movie. That's like this movie Unfriended. I don't know if anybody's seen the previews for that. It's 83 minutes long. I mean, you're going to pay full price for a movie. I want 2 hours of entertainment at least. So.
And then was the second question there if there was a conspiracy to coordinate the P times?
Oh,
was that in there?
Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to make a movie and purposefully put a P time in it.
I was wondering, there's a kind of irony in what you've done here, because it seems like part of the success of what you've done is you just did something that you enjoyed doing, and that fixed a kind of problem you had. And I'm presuming that part of that wasn't just that you enjoyed developing, but also that you enjoyed watching movies. Right. But what's happened is, in the process of doing what you've enjoyed, you've ended up ruining what you've enjoyed by saying it's not fun to watch movies, and you watch now thousands of hours of movies and you're not enjoying it. And I'm just curious if you'd reflect a little bit on that kind of conundrum about building a business model around something you enjoy doing and ending up not liking doing that anymore.
Yeah, I think it's actually true of anything in life. I mean, if you, my wife used to be loves rock climbing, and then she got a job teaching people to rock climb, and it just became a chore, So I think that's kind of a common thing, that things that you really enjoy doing, and then when you turn them into a source of income, and there's the stress, and it's like, the performance, and I've got to do this much, and I got to meet a quota. Yeah, it just kind of ruins the experience. If you love something, and you don't need to, make it a money-making thing, then just enjoy loving it. I don't have any regrets, and it's not like it ruins the movie-going experience. It definitely dampens it. Now, I love action movies, and so when Avengers Age of Ultron comes out, I'll be there opening night to see it. We'll have P times before it comes out. But I'll go see it to make sure that they're good. And then I'll go see it again Friday to enjoy it. You know, because I can't enjoy it while I'm working. So yeah.
All right. So your story is really fun to listen to because it's kind of the accidental success is kind of how it comes out, you know, with your mom and Leo Laporte and then NPR and so forth. That obviously is what just skyrocketed your business. Do you think if you had to do it over again, you could kind of capture that lightning in a bottle again and kind of orchestrate some of that rather than kind of miraculously just letting it unfold?
Yeah. I mean, if I had actually had faith in this from the get-go, it would have been a mobile app, you know, before it got popular. You know, but like I said, at this point, I didn't know what I was doing. It was entirely accidental. A lot of serendipity happened along the way. A lot of people stepped in and realized that I was incompetent when it came to running a business. And like, we love this idea. We want to see it succeed. So do this. And I think, I don't know if I'm really answering the question, but users, I think this is really, really important for anybody who develops an app. Make it super, super easy for users to get information to you. You know, there's multiple ways to contact me in the RunPee app, because if there's a mistake, if there's a feature somebody wants, you know, I want to know about it. And I get emails from people all the time asking questions, offering advice. And a lot of the feature updates, like take for instance, anything extra after the end credits, that wasn't my idea. There's a user who's like, you know, you're at the movies already. Why don't you just let us know if there's anything extra? Like, yeah, duh, sure, I'll do that. And so I would definitely do things a lot differently because I'm a lot less incompetent now, instead of being totally incompetent then.
Thanks, Eric. To close things out, what's the best thing about that you started your company? What's the best thing about owning a company?
Well, I'm my own boss, and you know, RunPee. It's not like I don't spend every day. I mean, most days I spend more time in the garden than I spend working on RunPee. So I guess I'm semi-retired.
This is called Startup Grind, though. So can you pretend that it's hard?
Oh, right. Well, I think the point. I mean, if you make a startup, I mean, I don't know if anybody has this idea. It's like, I want to make a startup and I want to spend 18 hours a day for the rest of my life working on it. No, you make a startup because you want to spend 18 hours a day for maybe a year and get, you know, success and either hire somebody or sell it or whatever, you know, and retire. So, you know, I'm semi-retired. I mean, I still support RunPee. It's still a weekly job, and it's still a kind of a pain in the butt to try to get away on a vacation because of the ties that I have on a weekly basis. But on a daily basis, you know, I can go about my own business, enjoy the things that I want to do. So.
Well, thank you. Oh, sorry, we're out of time. You can come up and talk to me after, though. But so can everybody put your hands together and thank Dan for sharing the story?
Thank you.